as I shared, I got my borderline personality disorder workbook in, well, technically it's like 4 or 5 a.m. So I actually got it yesterday morning. I ordered it through Amazon, which a lot of y'all donated towards it for my birthday yesterday or 2 days ago. So I went ahead and I got that. And I have completed about, it's gonna annoy me, 2 chapters so far, and my thoughts about it so far is I have to be kind of quiet because Melanie is in her room sleeping. Um it's very basic, it's very foundational. The kind of information that he provides, he gives you just like some basic knowledge about BPD from a psychological standpoint, genetics, social influences, just different things that may have contributed to the development of borderline personality disorder. And the way he introduces it is just like, I guess if you were actually to go sit down with an actual personal therapist. And it's funny because I was actually like, questioning, I was saying in a video recently, I wonder how they go about diagnosing you. Do they like give you a list of things that you just check off? Because personally, it's easy for me to have something like that where you can give me like a list of symptoms of how somebody with BPD may feel, and then I can like check it off or something. And that's actually what this book does. So I guess that is what they do professionally if you were to actually go to somebody. So, um, right off the bat, that's kind of what it is. It's just kind of like you're talking to him as a therapist. He just kind of put it in workbook form. So the same questions that a professional would probably ask you, you just check it off in the workbook. They have little questions. He gives you like a little bit of information in each chapter, and then he asks you questions about like your background and how much you feel like you relate to what he shared. And one thing I like about it so far, he gave an example in chapter 1 of a woman that he actually had as a client years ago, and her name was Betty. She was 22 years old, and I'm trying to figure out, do I want to read it? Uh, I guess to give a thorough review of the book so far. I'm sorry. I'll go ahead and do it. I'm not even tired. I don't know why I keep yawning like that. Um, so he does say in the beginning of the book, this workbook will help you whether you've been professionally diagnosed or not, because you could have just researched BPD and felt like that you relate to it, or you have some of the traits or some of the symptoms, so it can help you for that reason. So I was like, okay, well, that's me, because I've never been professionally diagnosed with a borderline personality disorder, but I do have that. So I like how he's open. It's nothing like really restricted or just kind of shut in. Like you can't really use the workbook. It's not for you if you haven't been to a professional and actually had somebody tell you that you have BPD. No, I can research disorders and see which one I actually identify with. And it's no different than me going to a professional and him and telling me, or, me telling him or her the same thing. And then they diagnose me. I can diagnose myself. so so, basically, he says the workbook is basically it's packed with information that's really going to help you decipher and discover what contributed to you developing borderline personality disorder in your life. So it's actually very personal. It's very just pretty much uniquely for you. I like how when he gave different examples of people who I didn't even know that there was a spectrum for BPD. There's mild BPD, there's moderate, there's severe BPD, which I feel like that's what I diagnosed myself. I put severe. Then there's extreme. So, yeah, so basically it's just so you can kind of get a personal handle on your own life, kind of learn about it, what it is, what contributing factors were probably responsible for you developing it, because it is a personality disorder. It's not really like a mental illness or a disease like I thought it was. At least I don't think it is. And then he gives you like some skills, some techniques, kind of coaching you is what he said he does throughout the workbook, so you can kind of pretty much master the borderline personality disorder symptoms. And I'm going to get into the symptoms in a few minutes. So, this is just somebody that he used as an example. Please forgive me if I consistently yawn throughout this video. I don't know why I do that whenever I start talking. I'm not even tired. So he says Betty. Betty was a 22-year-old woman who had always had difficulty making and keeping friends. Multiple relationships with friends, significant others, family members, and coworkers had ended because of intense arguments and even physical fights. Many people were frustrated with her strong need to control them and dictate what they did, her demanding style, and her immediate and intense reactions. In many ways, she was like a chameleon, as she tended to change her views and values to fit in with the different types of people, such as people who liked politics, were part of the goth subculture, or were sexually adventurous. She changed to avoid being rejected and to feel understood. If her friends wanted to do something other than what she wanted, Betty often became visibly angry and then ditched them. Yet her friends also enjoyed spending time with her because she was usually the life of the party and never backed down from a dare. However, sometimes Betty was slow to respond to her friends' texts or emails and would stay at home for days at a time for no obvious reason. She'd regularly say, "I'm usually alone in a crowded room." When she wasn't around friends, Betty often cried and searched the internet for her next romantic encounter. Betty was head over heels in love with Stephen the instant they met and wanted to talk with him every day. She broke up with him when he didn't immediately respond to her texts about a gift she left on his doorstep. She began referring to him as the devil. This was a difficult breakup for Betty, and though she ended it, she felt rejected, alone, lost, conflicted, and confused about her feelings about Stephen, as well as about herself. Betty had issues outside of her relationships, too. When she was highly stressed, she often felt detached from her body and the world around her. She said that she often felt like a puppet with a stranger working her strings. She drove recklessly and had two DWIs, and she shoplifted if things got too boring, quote unquote. Betty had seen numerous psychologists and psychiatrists since turning 12 years old, and she was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive personality disorder, impulse control disorder, and major depressive disorder. Medication was helpful for some things, but not for others. Her problems persisted, and medications kept changing as issues arose and dissipated based on what was going on in her life. After Betty broke up with Stephen, she cut her arms and her coworkers saw the scabs. She was embarrassed and she decided to re-enter treatment. This time in therapy, she discovered that she met criteria for borderline personality disorder. This diagnosis made sense to her, and having it and the help of a skilled therapist allowed her to embark on a journey of healing. So, this is somebody he actually had as a real life client, and the author of this book, he actually is a real therapist. He has a YouTube channel, and he kind of just used her as an example for a extreme case for borderline personality disorder. So, I guess it makes sense to start off with somebody that's or the case that's like the most extreme, and then you can just kind of work your way down. Because if you have somebody who does have more of an extreme case of BPD, and then you make a workbook for people who probably don't deal with it that badly, that may not identify as strongly, and they may not get a chance to be properly diagnosed. So I get it. Reading her as an example, I identified with a lot of the Betty figure, and I'm going to share that. The part that I identify with was the difficulty, I wouldn't say making, but keeping friends. Oh, I keep yawning. I'm so sorry, y'all. I really am. Y'all gonna watch this playback and be so annoyed. Difficulty making and keeping friends. Um, I don't feel like I have difficulty making friends. I think I can identify with a lot of people. I'm very much relatable. I'm very outspoken. So I connect to people with no problem. My problem is not making friends. My problem is keeping friends due to borderline personality disorder, which I'm going to get into in a few minutes. And it says that, her relationships with her friends, her family members, co-workers, it ended because of intense arguments and even physical fights. I'm not a violent person, so I'm not a fighter either. So I've never really gotten into real physical altercations with people, maybe counting on one hand in my life, not even anywhere near five. But I have had a lot of broken relationships in the body of Christ because that's where the center of my relationships are in my life, due to arguments and things just ending badly, which, like I said, I'm going to get into in a few minutes. And it emphasized how she had a need to control her influences in her life. She dictated what they did. She had a very demanding style about her. She had immediate and intense reactions. I keep yawning. When I was reading it, I said, that sounds like how I used to be. I would have to ask people who've actually encountered me personally, if they're watching this video, if they feel like I am controlling, that I have a demanding sense of style. One thing I can't agree with personally, I don't feel like I have that. Somebody else, I mean, I'm open to constructive criticism, so I would rather hear, people's opinions who've actually been in fellowship with me and who've actually been friends with me to answer that question if they feel like I am that way. But one thing I do identify with is the immediate and intense reactions that she had in her relationships. I do that. And it says that she was like a chameleon. She was able to accommodate to different types of people. And I thought it was interesting that one of the things that was highlighted was the goth subculture. And I share with y'all all the time how like that actually is a part of my testimony, and that's actually what led me in most of the bondage that I'm in today, or the residue and what's left of it. So, and I was thinking about that because that's actually one of the symptoms. I'm going to go over the actual symptoms. It's 9 symptoms, I think, of borderline personality disorder. I'm going to go over all of them, and I actually qualify for all of them. So I have all 9, symptoms and traits. But I noticed that they said that people with BPD, there's a sense of like, lack of identity, or struggling with like identity crisis and self-image. They are always switching up like their appearance, their name, it's always just this, identifying with different kinds of personalities and lifestyles or subcultures. And I said, it's kind of crazy because as a Christian, going through this workbook, I had to think really hard because a lot of the things that I identify with, even like the BPD symptoms, it's more internal for me. It's nothing I feel like I really manifest externally. I don't personally feel like I do something like that outwardly because I understand what our culture is as Hebrews and Christians. So what I deal with internally and the fragments that I deal with, they may want to dress a certain way. And I feel like internally I do identify with many different subcultures, and it is stuff that I have previously been in bondage to in my past, which is the goth subculture, hippie subculture, a lot of things I'm not going to share in this video because it's a little bit too personal. But when I was thinking about that, I said, that sounds a lot like, and they actually say that you can't be professionally diagnosed with BPD under the age of 18 because you're still developing as a person. So they really don't even diagnose you with this particular personality disorder until like you're well above adult age, but it could still be shown as you're growing up. And I find that interesting because if I had to pick an age where I feel like I noticed those symptoms, where I had identity crisis and I was just kind of accommodating to different styles and different subcultures, it was in middle school when I was 12 years old. I was black. I was just a normal black girl. Like I said, in fifth grade in elementary school, I was always very outspoken. I always had a big personality, pretty much the same way I am today. I was on the dance team. I was actually a leader of the dance team. I didn't have any issues. When I got to middle school, I didn't have any real, I can't say that my sexual abuse didn't contribute to what led me into experimenting with different subcultures, because I feel like it obviously did, whether I was conscious of it or not. I do feel like that played a part in it. But yeah, when I got to middle school, I first, I just wanted to, I don't know, I just wanted to experiment with different kinds of people. And the first group were like the preppy, they weren't mean, but I'm going to call them, they were white girls, and they remind me of the girls from Mean Girls, but they weren't mean. I even remember their names: Tabitha Primrose, Megan Nance, and somebody else. And they were just white girls. They wore the pretty pink lip gloss and the pretty purses, and they were just really preppy and just cheerleaderish. I don't know what made me drawn to them. I was 12. I can't really tell you that. I just thought they were interesting, and I think for me, it was kind of like going to college. Like, oh my God, there's so many different kinds of people. Because when you're black and you go to a predominantly black elementary school, all you know is your people. So I guess for me, at least what I knew consciously, is it was just different kinds of people. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I want to be friends with them and see what they're like. So I feel like naturally you do just kind of, adapt to how they are. And you're not doing it intentionally. So that was the first group of people. And then from that, I graduated to the punk rockers. I say punk because punk and goth are completely different. Punk was like, listening to the Green Day, the skateboarders, not really on the dark side. It's like the gateway to the dark side. I started befriending them, and then I went on into the emo clique with people who were more depressed and listening to the sappy metal, emo emotional music. And you see, it was just like a graduation. So this is four different cliques of people: preppy, punk, emo, scene. I used to have long, beautiful black hair. I used to dye my hair black, and I used to have a little bang over my eye and everything. It's terrible. Don't laugh at me, okay? I was a scene girl, and I was cute too. I was a cute black scene girl. I used to get compliments like that all the time. But and then if I had a picture, I would show y'all. I don't think I have a picture like that. And then from there, I went to the goth side, and that's where my life turned for the worst. So I do find it interesting that they say with BPD, it's people who they're like chameleons. Like they just have like all these different identities. They're just 1 month they're really into hip hop and they're like, ghetto and just kind of street. And then they go to another group of people kind of blend in with pretty much any type of personality trait. And so that's why they say that one of the symptoms for BPD is just inconsistency and instability when it comes to identity. It's like they don't even know who they are. And I was reading that and I was watching videos. I'm like, I I said, do I feel like I don't know who I am? I wouldn't say that. I know who I am. I know who I am in Christ. And I'm grateful for that. I feel like people who are not in Christ probably deal with identity crisis a lot more deeper than I do. I deal with identity dissociation. I wouldn't say I don't know who I am. I know that I'm a prophetess. I know my calling. I know my spiritual gifts. I know all that stuff. I know who I am in my core. But I will say that due to what I deal with and the fragmentation, I identify with different subcultures that I still need deliverance from. So, and that's true. Um, I would say, and this is just something personal I'm sharing. When it comes to maladaptive daydreaming or kind of fantasy, I still do relate very much to rock music. Just that subculture, just the kind of, not really goth, I don't want to say that dark, but just more so the same thing I used to be involved in when I was much younger. I identify with a lot of different kind of personality and lifestyles, and it's more so internal, but it's not manifested externally. So looking at me, you would never be able to tell that, but internally, yeah, I still have that bondage. So I find that very interesting that they said that. So that means that even when I was 12, that those symptoms of BPD were already showing. The fact that you were just kind of migrating to different, and that's why they say they don't diagnose you that young, because it does look like a 12-year-old girl who's just experimenting in middle school. She's just trying to find herself. And typically that is, what that could be. A lot of the people that I was in these kind of phases with in middle school, today they're nothing like that. Not all of them. Most of them are just normal adults, 27-year-old adults. They look pretty normal. They don't look like they're still attached to any, gothic phase that we're going through. Not everybody. So I get why they say they don't diagnose you that young, but they pay attention. So it's more of like an observation thing. Like the BPD could have been showing when you were 11, when you were 12. The identity dissociation, not really knowing who you are, not really being firmly rooted, and not really having a strong sense of identity and a sense of self. Because I used to have people from fifth grade that went to Vincent Middle School with me. We transferred into sixth grade, and they would tell me, Brandy, do you need us to teach you how to be black again? And I just, like I said, I wasn't conscious of what was going on with me. I thought I was having fun. I was experimenting with all these different subcultures and just different kinds of music. And looking back at it now, I'm like, yeah, that does sound like identity dissociation. Because if you knew who you were, why would you go into a new atmosphere and feel the need to change something about yourself and your interests? You're not naturally interested in those things. So that's a good point to make. So like I said, it just goes back to the splitting that probably took place before you even got there due to sexual abuse and whatever else was going on. So that's interesting. It says that the compulsiveness about Betty, if her friends wanted to do something other than what she wanted, Betty often became visibly angry and then ditched them. Yet her friends always enjoyed spending time with her because she was usually the life of the party. When I read that, I said, okay, so it sounds like her personality disorder, the only issue, it seems like she's probably a dope chick. Like, she's fun to be around. Like, her real personality, aside from any trauma-related issues that she's having, she's a nice person to be around. She's a cool friend. But she has her issues. That is compulsive that, it seems like if there's any kind of subtle disappointment or anything small, the person just goes from 0 to 100. Not really when it comes to anger, but just kind of cuts the people off. And that's because I do that, so I know why she did that. Just internalizing rejection or not being accepted. So I was like, okay, I identify with that part. When it talked about her falling in love with the guy immediately as soon as they met, and breaking up with him and calling him the devil when he just simply didn't respond to a text message about a gift, that's rejection. I relate to that. They're actually going to get into the symptoms, like I said, so they're going to break this down a little bit more, like, soon. Actually, on the next page right here. Um, I'm gonna wait for that one. It's interesting. They said she often felt detached from her body and the world around her. She said that she often felt like a puppet with a stranger working her strings. I've never felt like that. I don't feel like somebody, or, I don't feel like a puppet. I don't feel like anybody's controlling me. When I read that, I honestly thought of demonic possession. People who probably don't have the Holy Spirit that deal with BPD, they probably feel like that. And that's interesting that they would describe it that way, because that's literally what's happening to you, is a spirit controlling you. Yeah, what they just described is definitely demonic possession. She often felt detached from her body and the world around her. That sounds like she's in the background. She's a bystander to what she's experiencing, and something else is controlling her. She said that she often felt like a puppet with a stranger working her strings. That's demonic possession. Self-mutilation. Yeah, that's one of the symptoms for BPD. I don't self-mutilate. I used to, which is why I say I think the BPD was definitely showing, and I still think that BPD is contributed to witchcraft spirits. I'm gonna get into that too. I did all that stuff in middle school, and that's actually something I learned being a part of the goth culture. Is that's something that they just did, especially emo people. They just cut themselves, and I got into that. But then I actually had a spirit, a dark spirit attached to me. So it started becoming genuine cutting and stuff, because I started, getting depressed. I had a heavy spirit of depression. So as for like self-mutilation, I don't do any of that. I don't have any desire to. It doesn't cross my mind to self-mutilate. And even from a logical standpoint, I've never just been a genuine, authentic cutter. Like I said, when I did that stuff, I was much younger when I was gothic and into that stuff, and it was like a learned behavior because of the clique that I was hanging with. That's just what people like that did. But there are people who are authentic cutters. Like they do it for a sense of relief or release, the same way somebody would abuse drugs or, substance abuse. I've never been that type of person. And I just think also from a logical standpoint, it does not look good when you are doing that. Even if you're dealing with mental illness or a personality disorder, you do not want to be physically cutting yourself, because if you want somebody to think that you're crazy, that's the way to go. They will see that. I used to, many, many years ago. I don't. That doesn't even cross my mind. I don't do that. So, now the actual definition of borderline personality disorder, professionally, it says that a personality disorder is broadly defined by the inability to adjust one's behavior, thinking, and pattern of responses in relation to particular situations or feelings or both. So lack of self-control, emotional instability, turmoil, you get it. So that's pretty much what they're talking about. Now, as far as borderline personality disorder, it says it's a pervasive pattern of instability or of interpersonal relationships, so instability in your interpersonal relationships, self-image, and affects and marked impulsivity beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. So, instability in the relationships, personal relationship. Yes, I think that's kind of common sense, because when you have somebody that's fragmented dealing with BPD, they're just pretty much internalizing their relationship. So basically, whatever confusion, whatever chaos, whatever disorder, whatever dissociation and identity crisis that's taking place within the person, of course, it's going to reflect and bounce back on the people in their lives. It has nothing to do with the people themselves. So, for those of you who have been abused by those of us who deal with BPD, I apologize. Okay, that's common knowledge, though. How people treat you and what the condition of your relationships are is reflective of what's going on inside of that individual. Or maybe they're not really skilled on how to internalize their relationships and their situations to have healthy communication styles, and that always plays into the destruction of the relationship too. I deal with that. It says instability in self-image, and affects and marked impulsivity beginning by early. Okay, anyway, let me see. Okay, so here's the fun part. Okay, I see three people are here. Can y'all at least let me know who you are if there is three people? This is the BPD symptoms. It says place a check mark next to any description below that matches how you see the world and how you act and how you react. So the first one, and these are the 9 traits of BPD. This is what BPD is. The first one is frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. For example, Betty perceived that her boyfriend was abandoning cases. Betty perceived that her boyfriend was abandoning her because he didn't respond to her gift quickly enough, which drove her to break up with him, causing her to feel even more abandoned. She had a history of inappropriate behavior related to feeling abandoned. When I was watching videos about this, and I was genuinely researching BPD, and I was like, okay, do I identify with this? Like, I was really trying to get an understanding. What do they mean by perceived abandonment? And I was like, do I fear abandonment from people? I still struggle with rejection, but yeah, I actually have a couple videos on that brother who just commented on my mental health playlist. I was talking about it. And they actually say in the workbook that diagnosis is just to with help you identify which treatment you need. It's not really like a label, dictating who you are. It's not that. So anyway, I said, okay, do I struggle with perceived abandonment, or it's always fearing abandonment from people? And Oh my goodness, I have a burp stuck in my throat. It's like a watery, deep, like ditchy burp. Like, ugh, I'm sorry. I checked yes because I actually did this with a believer the other day. And I was like, I actually do that with people. If I had to give an example, I don't want to share that example because it's a little bit too personal. Crap. This sucks because it's a live, so it's going to be all awkward and stuff because I'm not making a video for me to pause and think. Frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. I'll say this. Me and an individual, I kind of exploded on them recently due to one of these symptoms. And let's just say, like, you message the person and you're reaching out to them to contact them, and you did it. It's kind of like, with us, it's taking a risk because we're already afraid and fearing abandonment and rejection. So if they don't respond the same day or they don't respond immediately, or let's say you message somebody on Facebook and you deal with BPD and you saw they were actually online, but they didn't read your message, you immediately just throw them away, like, okay, well, you know, like, I mean, but severely. Like, you can literally feel the cut off, like, inside. Like, I do that with everybody. And I guess that's why they say it's frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. They should have said rejection. So I guess the abandonment and the rejection is intertwined. So it's like a deep rooted fear of rejection. And it's almost like how people react to you and how people treat you in your life, even if they don't even know that you gave them that responsibility or that position in your life. Normally, they don't know that you even did that, so they're disappointing you without even intentionally disappointing you, and they end up just getting cut off randomly. I have done this with brothers and sisters in Christ where I felt rejected, and it was all because I internalized, their actions or their words or maybe something. If I may have wanted them to respond a certain way to something because it would have showed that they catered to my feelings when they don't even know that they had a responsibility to do that in the first place. And when they didn't do it, I'm like, see, that confirms they don't really care about me. That confirms they don't love me. They're not a real friend. And I just, like, I don't know, remove them from my Instagram, or I just blocked them out. I never talked to them again. That's what they're talking about. Like, you see how all of this is completely personal. This almost has nothing to do with the person that you're doing it with. They probably don't even know that you're doing this at all internally. I did this recently. For example, my birthday would be a great example because dealing with self rejection, you feel like nobody loves you. And they actually make jokes about that with borderline personality disorder. All the memes is always saying stuff like, you're always calling and texting your friends to see if you did anything wrong, to confirm or validate whether they still love you, whether they still care about you, whether you're still worthy in this person's life. So for my birthday, I told myself this. I know it sounds crazy. I promise. Well, I don't promise. You're not supposed to promise, but I give you my word. I was not being proud or haughty by saying this. So because I attribute birthday, honoring someone's birthday and showing how much you care, how much you love them, I told myself that if everybody I'm in fellowship with does not tell me happy birthday, or if they don't bless me with money somehow, I know that they don't really care about me. And I had specific people in mind. It was all internal, it was all personal, it was very rejection related. These people don't even know that you did that. And to be honest, the Christian part of me, I wouldn't care whether you gave me money or not, but because there's a part of me that feels like if they love you, they would do that. So it's like if they didn't do it, that would confirm what you were fearing the whole time, which is what they're talking about, fear of abandonment. They didn't really care about you, or they didn't really see you as a friend like that. And one of the people I was thinking about, they actually did go forward and they gave me like a little birthday, you know, um, financial blessing, and they told me to enjoy my birthday, and it just kind of eased those fears. So, yeah, when it comes to BPD, it's very much delusional. It's like you have these really intense perceived paranoid, thoughts, just intrusive thoughts that people feel or don't feel a certain way about you. More so people in your personal life. If they really care about me, they'll do this or they'll respond that way. And it's just more like internal standards that you set for yourself that these people don't know anything about. They have no clue that you're doing this. They may not even know that you struggle with something like that. and then they're wondering why you just randomly cut them off or deleted them on social media. And I've actually done that to a lot of people, and I know they're probably wondering, like, why did she do that? Like, did I do something wrong? And it's not funny, but so yeah, frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. I guess the part where you're avoiding the abandonment is, you know how people who deal with rejection, I'm gonna cut you off before you cut me off, or I'm gonna cut off the relationship before you can hurt me further, or confirm the fears and suspicions that I have about how you really feel about me when it's probably not true at all. That's some serious bondage. But so that's the first one. The second one, which I also qualified for, a pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships characterized by alternating between extremes of idealization and devaluation. The example for that one The example for that one is when Betty met Steven, she was head over heels in love and wanted to talk with him every day, but she broke up with him, referring to him as the devil when he didn't respond quickly enough to her text about a gift she left on his doorstep. She'd had similar experiences with her three previous boyfriends, so once again, a pattern. It's not just a one time thing. This is how this person functions in their relationships with people who they're close to in their life, of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships characterized by alternating between extremes of idealization and devaluation. So, this means that somebody with BPD, with everybody in their life, everything's black and white. They're either really awesome. Oh my God, I love this sister. She's my best friend. She always praises me. She's always there for me. She's a great counselor, blah, blah, blah. Or it's completely negative, which means they can either be one or the other, one day and the next. This is very much true. I've done this with so many people in my personal relationships, and of course they're Christians. I actually did this with a friend of mine the other day. I literally just posted a long post on Instagram about her, showing how much I appreciated her. It was very sentimental. I meant every word of it. It was very genuine. And it blessed her so much that she actually responded to me, I think, in a 20-minute voice recording. And so they actually call this splitting. It's a BPD term, splitting, which means that how we perceive our relationships, I don't know if they really get to the root of why you deal with splitting later on in the workbook, but it's how we see our relationships. We don't see a gray area with you. We either see you as you're really, really perfect for our life, you're really, really a good friend, you're a really, really good person, you cannot do any wrong, or the minute you do something wrong, you're all bad. There is no sense of, oh, maybe she just didn't understand that revelation. Maybe she just doesn't, she's not mature in spiritual things in that regard yet. She doesn't know what you know, but she offended you with something that she said. I'll just give you an example. The same friend that I posted this wonderful, what they call idealization, the ideal boyfriend, the ideal girlfriend, the ideal sister in Christ or best friend. It's almost like you put them on a pedestal amidst all the other relationships that you have in your life. And it's kind of sad to think that somebody is actually grading you. They kind of have you on a grid, and you don't even know that somebody with BPD is actually doing that. You have a placement. All their relationships, somebody has 10, somebody has 9, somebody has 8. And it's kind of weird because it's like intellectually, as a Christian, you should know that you should just love everybody equally. Everybody has different personalities, everybody's different. If you feel like one sister blesses you more than the other, then that's great. There's nothing wrong with that, but that shouldn't really determine how you appreciate that sister over another one. And I do that. And now I know why I do that. So I can be in fellowship with like 10 sisters, and there's that one I feel like is my favorite one. That's what they call the idealization. And she's like the high standard. She's on the pedestal, and she can be there for months. Let her do one thing wrong. And it's not even like, not a narcissistic way, but just more so to where it makes me feel rejected, or I feel abandoned, or I feel really misunderstood, or I feel like she offended me with maybe her opinion or her judgment or something, where I feel like it betrayed me, or it wasn't in my favor. And They immediately go from being this favorite friend, favorite sister, everything that you loved about them, everything they were doing right. They made one mistake unintentionally, and they immediately go to the devaluation part they just said. So that's why they say it's an alternating between extremes of where these interpersonal relationships are placed in the lives of people who deal with BPD, because it's kind of sad. They're actually showing you how they see you. It's not intentional. Like I said, I'm assuming that they're going to get into why we split like that. Like, what a healthy relationship should look like is understanding, especially with Christians, that we're not all on the same level. We should show grace to one another and understand that a lot of us just still need some growing. A lot of us are still growing in knowledge of the same or different things, and what brings us together should be, yeah, how we benefit one another and how we edify one another, but also how we connect, and the fact that you've developed a genuine love for this person. And with these people, I actually have developed a genuine love for them. But it's kind of weird because it's like, even though that can be in my heart, I felt that when I was doing those things, like cutting them off, and they just went from like this sparkling, like perfect sister to me, the best friend I could ever have in my dark, dark world. And then she did one thing wrong where she agreed with somebody I don't like, or I felt like she betrayed me, because y'all see where I'm going with this. Or we internalize something as betrayal that the people do. Because sometimes, if it's a real friend, they didn't do it intentionally. So it's something that we internalize as rejection of us personally. And I think that's where the splitting comes into play. I really think that this splitting idealization of people and the devaluation of the relationships in our lives is due to deep down wanting to be fully loved and fully accepted. And if we internalize that they do wrong, that they don't even know that we consider those things wrong, to us, that's, you're rejecting me because you're supposed to be my, you're supposed to support me through and through. You're supposed to be in agreement with me. You're supposed to not talk to them if they talk bad about me. That makes you feel like you don't really care about me, and you just cut them off, period. There is no gray area. There is none. They talk, if you look it up, they say that on every video. With people with BPD, it's black or white. You're either on this side or you're not here, period. And it's always been like that in all of my relationships in my life for years. Now that I understand what it is, I see why I do that. But yeah, I've done it. You can ask any sister; they'll tell you, like, yeah, she just cut me off, like, and they didn't even really do anything wrong. But Paloma is one of the sisters I did this to, y'all. I can tell you, like, yes, Brandy did this to me. So that's true. So I can speak from maybe for other people who do deal with BPD, what I personally experience. It feels like the reason why we cut you off that quickly, or the reason why you can go from being like this 10 and this star in our life to just an immediate, what I experience is when I realize it as rejection, or not anything, even if it's not full support you feel from them, even if it's not full fulfilling the responsibility you created for these people internally, that, determines whether they're a really great friend or they're, being a partial friend. They don't even know that you did this. You created this system inside of you. And that's where you're gritting these relationships and these people. And I've had a lot of sisters tell me that I make them feel disposable because I do that. And truthfully, when you look at the way that people with BPD look at their relationships, you pretty much are disposable. But it's not something that they're doing intentionally. It's because they're internalizing everything. They're processing when you come into their life. It's like you go through a screen of, are they going to love me and accept me, or are they going to not do that perfectly? This sister could be like, she could fulfill 75% of relatability and being a real quality, compatible friend and sister in Christ to you. She could be, there could be more pros than cons, in other words. Let her do one thing wrong that makes you feel rejected, or you don't feel supported, you don't feel safe anymore, because if she can come into agreement with my enemy, or if she can, not see things the way I see it, if I feel abused or I feel threatened or I feel bullied and she doesn't see it that way, I'm no longer safe with her. She cannot be my friend. And you throw the whole person away. That is what I do. It's very destructive, and that's why they say, like, people with BPD, they destroy all the relationships because that's how they see people. But they're not doing that intentionally. I can honestly say it just feels like we don't feel safe anymore with the person, because what they're really looking for, What I think is a child altar. It may not always be a child altar. I think what they're really looking for deep down is full, complete support, full, complete, authentic love. And I think what it is that when somebody in their life shows signs that probably doesn't fulfill what they perceive to be that, they've pretty much already failed in that department. So it's kind of like, yeah, just I don't feel safe anymore. I don't feel like they can support my heart the way I thought that they could. So I don't want to experience this abusive treatment from them again. You see how dramatic it is. It's not funny, but it's true. Like, it's very dramatic. It's like you broke my heart. You took their side against mine. It's just simple things that would make a child internalize, like, oh, I thought you were my friend. That's why I say I think it's a child altar that's responsible for that part of the BPD because mature adults don't handle relationships like that. You got people that are in toxic relationships and friendships for years and they're still kicking it. Like, BPD, you mess up one time, honey, you were on that throne for a long time and that friend is gonna come tumbling down. They're gonna be like, what the heck happened? I was just your best friend yesterday. It's like, nope, nope, you just proven you were not my best friend. So terrible. It's not funny. I mean, it really is. And I can speak for this particular symptom. What it feels like, I feel a wall just shut up inside of me. It feels like a barrier. And in my heart, Paloma specifically, she's on here. What I can honestly say when I did it with Paloma the other day, and it was just simply like I just started thinking about this is something that happened months ago, but there was a situation where other sisters in Christ were involved. And I genuinely love Paloma as a friend, but I felt betrayed by her simply because I felt like she probably didn't perceive the situation the same way I did. So she wasn't there to defend me the way I wanted to be defended. And that's one thing I do want to I want people to understand when it comes to BPD. I got this workbook because I really want to work on my communication skills when it comes to my relationship because to be honest, we're not being ugly. I think that people with BPD have a hard time communicating how they really feel and why they do the stuff that they do. If you could explain to your friend, well, this is actually how I internalize this when this happened, this is how it makes me feel, this is how I process this, and y'all actually have a long conversation about it, they would still be your friend. Everything shouldn't be so cut and dry, but it is cut and dry with people with BPD. But so like in my heart, I still loved her, and I was like, no, somebody you can't just eject somebody from your heart that you truly actually develop a love and a care for. So when I did it, I did do it from a place of it was like psychological, it was like mental. It was how look, she giving me hearts. It was more so how I processed everything mentally when it happened. And it was just so stupid because, like I said, it happened months ago, but a few nights ago, I was just kind of like, something just kind of came over me, and I was like, it had always bothered me. It was like a very subtle thing, like, oh, I don't like the fact that, I feel like, if somebody that hurt me, or if somebody betrayed me, or somebody else made me feel unsafe, it made me feel rejected. And she may not see it to that same degree. For us, that's the black and white issue when if you see black, you want your friends to see all black. If you see black and they see dark gray, it's like, oh no, it's not safe. It's not safe. That's not my friend. I don't need you in my life and you can't be here. So when I did it, it was like a decision I just kind of made mentally because I felt kind of unsafe. But in my heart, like, no, I never stopped caring about her. I never stopped loving her or anything, but I did it. And then as soon as I did it, the Lord, the Holy Spirit started talking to me. He said, Brandy, you're overreacting. It's not funny, but he explained to me, and this is before I actually spoke with her about it because she confirmed it. He said that, crap, what did he say? He was just kind of giving me a word of knowledge about it. And he told me that, yes, that is, how you see things due to what you deal with, but it's not that black and white. I think he was telling me that he actually, that's what he told me. He said that Paloma is in a place where she may not genuinely know how to be a friend. He actually did say that to me. He was saying she wasn't doing those things intentionally. the way that you internalize it because of what you deal with, you do that with, that's the grid system that you have with every relationship, but you can't really use that same system with everybody because everybody is not coming in that package in your life. You have a lot of people that's going to come into your life that can really benefit you spiritually, and not even just spiritually as a sister, but can be a real friend to you. And there's been so many sisters I can name right off the bat that I just had bomb connections with, and I still have a genuine love for in my heart that my BPD has destroyed those relationships, but because I just threw them away. It's crazy. But he was telling me that he was just saying how she was not trying to not defend you. She just doesn't understand how to maybe just how to be a friend or maybe how to fulfill certain expectations that you set. And that's one thing that I really want to say to people, not even just in regards to BPD, but just communication in general. You can't set requirements and responsibilities for somebody that you're in a relationship with that they don't know anything about. That's not a relationship. If you're going to do that, at least communicate to that person what you expect of them from the relationship so that when they fail in that department, they don't just get kicked out for no reason. They don't even know what they did wrong. When you've been meditating on this for months and you've been internalizing the rejection and going back and forth in your mind, like, they can't be a real friend, or they really don't care about me, or they don't love me the way I thought they did. Maybe they don't love me the same way I love them, so they just cannot be in the kingdom. Like, they're going to have to get booted out. That's literally how it works mentally. And it's really so sad, but he was just kind of, he's always faithful to just kind of come in. You have this, the Holy Spirit is so faithful. You have like this kind of demonic grid or this really restrictive psychological system with how you think and how you perceive things. And he just kind of comes with his still small voice and he just gives you the mind of Christ and he tells you the truth about the person, the situation. And that's what he was just kind of pouring into me about her. He didn't really say a lot, just he was just pointing out how she's really gracious, she's really sweet. That situation, she obviously does not have your perspective when it comes to how that happened, and she just doesn't know how to just what it really means to be a friend. Or maybe she is your friend, but let me see another thing I can use to kind of compare. Let's say a parent, somebody who probably was never mothered or parented. They have a child. They love the child. So they're a mother, like they love you, they consider you as their daughter, that relationship and that bond is there, but they probably don't know how to be a mother in the sense of like actually carrying out the different roles. Like, what is the role of a friend? So you have the general definition of what a friend is, just general expectations we have in relationships. And then you have your own personal standards, which for some reason a lot of us don't communicate to those very people that we consider ourselves to have relationships with. You don't do that. So it's two layers of standards. So he was just pouring that out to me. And then when I actually was talking to her via email, she actually said it, that she said, I don't really know how to be a friend. I never really had friends. And she was saying how she always felt detached, and it's always been other people throughout her life that have identified with her and considered her a friend, but she just always kind of felt a dissociation type of thing with it. So she just kind of stumbled in that area. And it was so funny because when he told me that, it kind of felt like it was so weird. It was like I had this prism over my mind, and he was like kind of pouring in this truth that was trying to crack and make its way in. And it was kind of getting into my heart, but then that splitting was happening. I'm like, no, no, she can't love me. She can't care about me because of this, because of that, because she would have did this and that. And that's really sad, but that's really how that works. I've been dealing with that for years. There's been numerous times when Holy Spirit has had to come in and give me revelation about something that really happened to try to break down that demonic, not really demonic, mental stronghold, because it's just not true. It's a system of false beliefs and false belief patterns. That's why they give you treatment. That's a part of the treatment for personality disorders, is to break that stuff down, because it's not true. It's destroying your relationships. What you're thinking about people and how you feel they think about you, how they feel about you. If they did not say that, it's not true. You have no way of knowing that unless you have like extreme discernment. That's different. But I just mean like the suspicion factor, the paranoia, which is one of the symptoms that they're going to get into. It's not healthy. And although I do this, just reading it, the fact that the mental grid system of somebody with BPD is extremely idealizing, the black and white splitting, idealizing the person, they're on a pedestal in their life. they see you as just this perfect messiah figure because you're doing everything right. But it's like you don't even have room to make a mistake as a friend. You immediately plummet from that position down the stairs to just like, oh no, I don't even want you in my life. And it really does just all go back to that person internalizing your actions as rejection. But that's why I say, people with BPD need to learn how to communicate better. That you need to tell your friend why you felt that way. What exactly did they do? What exactly did they say that triggered this emotion in you? How did it make you feel betrayed? Because truthfully, they may have not betrayed you or done any of the things that you're perceiving to be betrayal, but it made you feel that way, which is why you did the actions that you did or took the actions that you did. So that's definitely something I want really corrected. I don't want to see people in my life as in a grid. That's not love. That's not the love of Christ. Which is why I say, you see how it's a mental stronghold. It's not something somebody's doing intentionally. It has nothing to do with God. The Father tells us to give grace to one another. That's not grace. It's like they don't even have a room to make a mistake. Like the Lord, you could have, borne witness that He blessed you with the relationship to be a friend. You have a supporter, you have a counselor, you have a sister that you're like minded with. Y'all share the same beliefs, y'all share the same revelations. You have that blessing. But the reality is, all of us have flaws. All of us are not going to satisfy each other all the time. We're not perfect. And it's very unfortunate that due to whatever, caused this trauma with people with BPD, they're looking for that perfect messiah loving figure. And it's like you get true genuine friendships, but if they don't fit that one compartment, you just don't feel safe anymore. You just shut down, you just kick the person out. And every time I did that with sisters in Christ in my life, I always told myself, well, and it's kind of sad because when they tell me, Brandy, you make me feel disposable, I do see them as disposable. That may sound really narcissistic. I don't mean it that way. What it feels like when I say that, when I say disposable, I mean, I remember just telling myself, well, there's so many other people who are just as anointed or that can be a friend to me, just like this person. One day I'll meet somebody who is nice in this area or who won't do what they did. And to be honest, anytime the Lord always sent somebody new, it was just the same thing. They were extremely awesome, extremely anointed. I bore witness with them. They were extremely compatible with me, but they still had their flaws. I'll say they still disappointed me. I don't want to say flaws because this has nothing to do with their flaws. This idealization and devaluation they talk about right here, it's all about how we personalize and internalize the satisfaction you give us and the part that you fulfill, the role that you play in our lives. So it's all about disappointment. I feel so sorry for people who are friends of people with BPD because it's very abusive and it's not intentional at all. If you really love the person that you're friends with that has that personality disorder, just like you would with schizophrenia or bipolar or anything else, if you do love them, you will explore that disorder a little bit more so you can kind of get an idea of what their inner world is like and how they see things. And not so that you can just kind of be a slave to them and, have to walk on eggshells, but because you are a Christian, I feel like it could help you walk in grace that much more with, understanding how they see things and how they feel when certain things are said or when things are done a certain way and how they personally see you. Because if they're idolizing you, like people with BPD do, they do recognize the positive attributes that you give to them. They do recognize what you bring to the table as far as the relationship. Otherwise, they wouldn't have idolized you in the first place. So when they're telling you they love you and they're praising you, they mean those things. It's just that the disappointment that you caused unintentionally, I think, triggered a negative emotional response, and we process that as rejection or maybe some past trauma or something where somebody else made us feel that way and we feel unsafe. So it's like you're repeating a pattern that you don't even know about, so it's just very unfortunate for people who are like on the other side of it because y'all got some heavy shoes to fill. But I feel like it wouldn't be that hard if you communicated. Communicate with your friend. Let them into your inner world. That's a part of being a friend anyway. Let them know how you think. Let them know how you see them, why you see them that way. And I can't speak for everybody that has BPD, but I can say for me, when I tell somebody I love them, I mean it. Everything is genuine, nothing was fake. And I think the way that people with BPD act, the way they can just cut you off like that, it does seem like, okay, well, you never really loved me, you must not really been my friend if it was that easy for you to just like throw me away. And that's not the case. We really do literally personalize everything as rejection. We feel like you rejected us, so we just got to do it back. It's crazy, but that's a real thing. I think that's the strongest symptom out of all nine, the idealization and the devaluation of everybody in their life. It's crazy. But yeah, I feel like if somebody really loves the person, it's hard to be with somebody like that. Especially when it comes to romantic relationship. That's a whole nother ballpark. That's not even just a friendship. Um, they're in bondage. People with BPD, when you literally just research the disorder, I'm like, okay, this just sounds like, I said that when I first started looking into it. I said, this sounds like somebody who's really fragmented, needs a lot of love. They've literally built up this internal system based on all these different characteristics. And it's almost like somebody, if they want to walk in and be a part of this person's life, they have to fulfill and all these different rules and all these different expectations to prove your love, to prove your loyalty. And it's kind of complicated because everybody expresses their loyalty and their love in different ways. So that's why I say I don't think it's impossible to be friends or to be with somebody with BPD. I think you just need to communicate very openly. You need to get an understanding of how they see things, where their heart, where their mind is at, what their internal system is like. And so you can know how to not misrepresent yourself again, or is that the word I wanted to use? I think so. Misrepresent yourself, because what they're doing is they're misunderstanding and misconstruing your actions and your words, even if your words and actions come from a very genuine place. I have to wait because I noticed that when I watch the playback, it starts glitching. So yeah, for you, you don't deal with all of that. Your friend does. So for you, you could just be sincerely ignorant of how your actions or lack thereof is affecting them. And that's really just what the issue is it's almost like with BPD, we just expect you to all. I've noticed that in my relationships. Like when I feel that with people before I cut them off, it's like I already expect you to know right from wrong. I already expect you to know that if you really loved me, if you really cared about me, if you really, saw me as a friend, that you would do this. Like it's almost like it should be done by default. And if they don't do it by default, it's basically like a scale of how much they care about you. And if you don't really care about me like that, that's abusive. I can't have that. like, because I'm going to get hurt. That's how I see it. So I'm sure it's probably how everybody else sees it. So it sounds like your friend's very sensitive. Your friend, you are walking on eggshells. It's a negative expression to use, but it's the truth, because you literally have to see yourself in a spiritual dimension, in a system of this person that is your friend. And you've probably gotten a chance to meet their persona, but their core persona is still stuck between all these different, those lasers that they have in, like, jewelry stores, and somebody's trying to rob it. They have all these different, systems and stuff that they're kind of stuck behind. And I would say it seems like the idealization part isn't really the issue, because like I said, if they're praising you and they see you as a messiah figure, you're doing something right. That's a good thing. I think the only thing I would focus on if I were a friend of somebody with BPD is the devaluation. So y'all need to communicate about what is it about you, or the way you communicate, or the way you say and do things, that makes them feel like you have lost value in their eyes. Because it may not have even been something you did intentionally or that is worthy of throwing you away. And I want to apologize on behalf of the BPD community. if we have made any of you feel disposable, because it's not disposable in the sense that you're not worthy, or that you're trash, or that you're not worthy to be in our lives. It's kind of almost like a processing system that we have on the inside. Kind of like, you ever seen Willy Wonka when they had the squirrels, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and they had the squirrels that were doing the nuts, and they would, like, if it's a bad nut, they would shake it, like, okay, that doesn't really pass the test, or that went away. Like, yeah, they throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. It's like you have no room to make a mistake. You have no room to, be wrong. There's no grace given at all. It's just you're either all good or you're all bad. And it just sounds like a lot of fear, a lot of self-rejection. The person is very sensitive. They need a lot of love. And I would probably give that person more grace. I would give them more love, because it seems like if it's so easy for them to devalue you based on the things you've done wrong, I would say to fill in that gap, I would purposely do things to prove my love, to prove my loyalty to them. And because you're recognizing how they process things and how they see things, and this is actually scriptural, so we can actually carry this out. You know how the Bible says that if you've offended your brother, you go and reconcile and make peace with him for his own sanity. People are more sensitive. People are in bondage, and you may not be. So just apologize to your friend and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that you saw it that way. I didn't know that you felt that way. This is actually how I meant it." Or, "This is what I was thinking when I saw it this way. I wasn't trying to betray you. I wasn't trying to come into agreement with your enemy." That's how they're processing that. So I think an apology would kind of be in place. The apology, I think, between the idealization and the devaluation would kind of form the bridge, because the issue is they don't have a gray area. Well, we don't have a gray area. There is no gray area. It's black and it's white. So to form the gray area, they had you on the pedestal. You fell off the pedestal, honey. You just turned into Lucifer, which is funny because it just said that Betty called the dude the devil. She was just madly in love with him. But as soon as she felt rejected, or that he wasn't receptive of that love, it said she got him a gift. She broke up with him when he didn't immediately respond to her text about a gift she left on his doorstep. She began referring to him as the devil. So she internalized his actions, or his failure to acknowledge her showing her love, which I'm assuming for her it was her being vulnerable and taking a risk and opening up herself and showing her heart. She took that as rejection, so she cut him off because she already felt abandoned. So people with BPD, I think we hurt you worse than you can hurt us, which is kind of funny because it seems like the people are really aggressive, but really on the inside, I think we're more sensitive. We're more like little babies. But when we cut you off, it's in a very hurtful and abrupt way, because I think it kind of I think it's reflective of the abandonment that we probably felt by the actions that you did, whatever they were. It's really ridiculous, but yeah. So you went from being Lucifer on the throne, no, not a throne, I'm sorry, whatever chair he had, and you fell. So now there's the devaluation. So what we're looking for to reconcile and rebridge a relationship with, dare I say it, the normal person and the BPD friend, you have to put that gray area there, which means that you would have to humble yourself. You would have to come down to their level and kind of meet them where they're at. See where their head is at and how they processed what the heck happened, which made them throw you away in the first place. And then you can give an answer for what they're thinking, because the issue is they need their minds renewed. They have a mental stronghold and a system that's set to believe and see things one way, which it's not even true. But if you really love the person, you will be willing to put effort into renewing their mind and showing them, creating a new structure of what the truth actually is. So, apology, be humble about it, be open to their perception and how they see things, what their reality is, meet them in their reality, and then present to them the real reality. I didn't mean this. That's not how I meant it when I said it. Where my mind was when this happened, or when this, when I said this was this. Because they just pretty much see you as a devil. Literally, we do. I mean, not literally, like actually Satan, but I mean, like, yeah, you're pretty much like a horrible person at this point. There's nothing at all that could reconcile those thinking patterns unless you actually did come to the person and give them a sense of understanding of their world. And that's the only thing that's really going to start to change those locks in their mind, because they have to be proven wrong. They think that they're right. Everything they're thinking about you and what you did, the way they processed it, it's real and it's true to them. The only way you can change that is to come and, like I said, form that gray area, form that bridge. It's going to be hard for them because they don't have a gray area. They see black and white. But you need to present the gray area. Offer an apology for how you made them feel. Even if you didn't do anything wrong. Scripture tells us to do this, so that should be easy. For those of you who are Christians, that should be easy to do. And it's almost like you're opening a door for your friend to see things a different way by proving that the way she thinks is not real at all. She's in some serious mental bondage if she's always personalizing external relationships and things that happen to her a certain way due to trauma in the past. That's what she's still in bondage to, and the way she treats you proves that she's stuck. We're trying to get the friend out of that system of thinking. You can't free somebody until you free their mind first. So for those who really love the people, who actually have the strength, because everybody ain't got it. Trust me, I understand. It's hard to be friends with somebody like that with BPD. It's very hurtful and abusive. It really, really is. The switching up and the feeling disposable. I feel like if you understand BPD better, you'll be more prepared for how they may deal or react to something. So that way, you don't always get your heart hurt or just kind of shanked. So, and know that it's not personal. I don't think that people with BPD, that it is personal. Like I said, it just goes back to how they internalize what you did, and they feel rejected. That's why they did it in the first place. Okay, I spent a lot of time on point two. So, did y'all get that? Was that good? Oh, I just have these wet, ditchy burps just stuck in my throat. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay, y'all just not gonna talk to me. Okay, it's cool. Number 3, identity disturbance. Markedly and persistently unstable self-image or sense of self. So, I was looking at that, I read it, and I had to go on YouTube. I was like, let me get a better understanding of what this symptom is before I try to see if I identify with it. Identity disturbance. Identity disturbance. Disturbed identity. Yeah, somebody who's not firmly rooted in a sense of self or who they are. And it just goes back to what I was saying earlier, identifying with all these different subcultures and different kind of personalities and lifestyles. It almost feels like you're 10 different people, you know? It's normal for somebody to be rooted in their identity and who they are as a person and identify with different things and like things, like different styles of music, like different styles of clothing. This is different. This is you. I'm gonna just throw this just a random. This is you being white, grew up in the suburbs, but identifying with hip hop culture, and you feel like you partially hip hop, but then you partially Jamaican and reggae. Oh, okay. Yeah, you partially Jamaican and reggae. And then it's almost like, you just have like all these multiple different identities, not necessarily multiple personality disorder. That's different. That's alters. This just sounds like somebody who there's no true sense of self. She's always going through this phase and this phase. And actually, I can relate to that. I told y'all I went through the preppy phase, then I went to the punk people, and then I went to the emo people, and then I went to the gothic people. And then once my mom moved me away from them because it got too dark, and yes, I did. I did get demon possessed at that time. I was 15. She moved me to orange, and then I got into the hippie phase. I started smoking weed, and I started doing pills. And then after that, I started watching Bad Girls Club at 15. Then I started to identify with the Jezebelian figure type of women, and I started to kind of take on that nature. So That's exactly what they're talking about. There's no real sense of identity with this person. They have no base. There's no real foundation. It's like they're a mixture and a combination of all these different just concepts, you know? And it could be spirits. I just feel like spirits just take any opportunity to come in with anything. But definitely, I definitely have that, which is why I say I definitely see how the BPD was showing up in my younger years, but they can't professionally diagnose you under 18 because you're still learning yourself. So, but yeah, like I still feel that way today. I still feel like I identify with each one of those subcultures. And that's just proof that I know it's crazy because y'all are probably used to seeing me as a sister or a prophetess or whatever, and I'm always sharing the word and I head cover, but that just proves I've never gotten deliverance. The system, the construct is still in here. There's been times when I actually just went back and started listening to old music I used to listen to years ago that is connected to each of these subcultures. That's confusion. That's a lot of double-mindedness, especially for, and to be honest, I think that my BPD is actually what kind of stopped my development in the Hebrew, really accommodating to my Hebrew identity and learning about our Hebrew roots. Because when I kind of started learning like what our culture was really like if the Lord told me numerous times, well, this is who you really are. So he was kind of helping me in my in therapy and stuff, and he would tell me that because I do deal with DID, or there's a form of dissociation when it comes to what I really identify with. And I told him that all the time. Like, I still like rock music. I still like, guitar type of sounds and stuff like that. And when he gave me the revelation that about our culture as Hebrews, he was just telling me, well, this is where you can start. This is your foundation. You can just kind of work up from there. And it was kind of like I just came up against a wall because the more I started learning about it, I was like, I don't like this. I don't identify with this. Like, I don't want to be that. And it's like, but that's who you are. So you see how that's very sad, but it's like that's who you are. The Lord didn't make you to have 5, 6 different, realities. If you're Cuban, honey, you're Cuban. If you're Mexican, if you're Asian, if you're Indian, that's your culture. That's where you come from. That's your background. That's who you are. So I think there's a sense of dissociation with all of us as Hebrews. We don't know who we are, period. We have to relearn who we are. And it's like, because I identify with so many other subcultures, truthfully, just even against Torah, in my inner world, in my inner system, there's a lot of deliverance that needs to take place. Because even me learning and trying to adapt to Hebrew culture in the sense of the Father's Torah and just, what our culture is as believers, the whole Bible, from the feast days to how we dress, how we talk, what it really means to be holy in lifestyle and demonstration. It started to kind of conflict with the system that I already have inside, identifying with all this stuff in the past. And I just kind of stopped. I got to a point where I'm like, I don't want to learn anymore because I don't like this. I think the Father just kind of allowed me to kind of put it on pause because there may be some deliverance that needs to take place first. But yeah, that's what they're talking about: identity disturbance, persistently unstable self image or sense of self. And you'll notice if you actually looked it up on YouTube, most of the women talking about BPD on YouTube, they all have different hair colors. They're constantly changing their appearance. And that's why I say, because I have an understanding as a Christian, maturing as a Christian, that I can't dress a certain way anymore. I used to do that. So the BPD was always there. It just doesn't show as much externally because I have a disciplined form of BPD, which I actually wrote down in my workbook. But yeah, back then I had so many different makeup looks. I didn't even look like the same person. I think I showed that to y'all in my Jezebel's Daughters video. I'm gonna put it in put it in the description box. But I had so many. I actually used to do a makeup look where I had one shade of foundation on one half of my face, and the other side of my face, I did a different foundation, a completely different eye look. And it was kind of like I was manifesting that I was split and I didn't even know what I was doing. But I identify with the makeup look, like, oh, I feel like two different people. And I would use my makeup creatively to show, my DID, or like, not, well, probably that too, but the dissociation was always there. I just used makeup to kind of manifest it. And I would look at my pictures like, that doesn't even look like me. It looks like a different person. I deleted most of them. I wish I could show y'all. Like it was crazy. Like I even had friends that would look at them and they would look at me and look at the picture and be like, that doesn't look like you. And she was like, oh, I guess you're just really pretty. And I'm like, well, yeah, I did a pretty look. I mean, it's meant to enhance you, but yeah, I never looked like my pictures. So I would always change my hair color. I started wearing wigs. I never really got into wigs that strong or weave or anything, but I noticed that. I looked at those girls on YouTube that have BPD and they all have like these crazy hair colors. They're always changing up their hair color and their appearance in every video. It looks like, to some people, it would look like, oh, she's really cool, she's creative. And if you look at them, if they were to be the standard for people with BPD, people would think that that disorder is a cool disorder because they make the chaos and the confusion look beautiful. Even when I was watching Encina, the one that has the 3-year-old altar mini, I was like, her hair is really pretty. Knowing that hair colors from the Marine Kingdom, and I know all that stuff, I was like, the color, I was like, her color is really pretty. And she does her little purple and her pink, eyebrows. But when you actually start to find out why they do that, because of dissociation and because they don't really have any real sense of self, and they're always kind of like a chameleon, just adapting to different kinds of looks and styles. Who do I feel like today? That's not healthy. It looks pretty, but it's not why they're doing that. I used to do that. So I was gonna say something else in regard to that. um yes, I was watching a video months ago when I first started talking about how I found out that I had BPD. And you know what they said was a symptom of it? They said the person is always changing their hair color, always changing their appearance, or always changing their name. And I saw that, I was like, oh. I've had a few people exit on my channel, but Brother Malachi, he was the last person. He said, I was on the phone with him one day, he was like, why do you always change your YouTube name? I was like, I don't know, I just get bored with it and I just change. Shut up, pull over, it's not funny. And like I never really, and he got really deep with it too, because I think at that time I had titled it Midnight Bloom, my YouTube channel Midnight Bloom. And he was like, what's the midnight for? I was like, and to be honest, I did identify with it like midnight. I was like, I don't know, I just always kind of like, dark midnight vibes, or the vibes that midnight brings, or just, purple galactic, type of things. Like, I had a really deep purpose behind it. He was like, that's interesting, that's really deep. I was like, yeah. I mean, like, I never thought about it past that though. Like, I've been changing my YouTube name for years. I think my first YouTube name ever was Child of God 389 before I deleted my account. You could have typed that in on YouTube and I would have popped up. That was my first YouTube name. But ever since then, I've just been changing my YouTube name. I just get bored with it. And it's funny because they say that's actually one of the symptoms of BPD with, they're very impulsive people. They get bored really quickly, or if something, they can't just do something or stay stuck to one thing for too long. They always switch and start something else. And that's true. I look at other people with YouTube channels, I'm like, how do they have that same name for like 5 years? Like, it's just like, I always saw it as like a sense of creativity. Like, oh, I can change my name, so like, why not do it? Like, I feel like Midnight Bloom today, and then like, maybe, well, now they give us actual time limit. We can't change it whenever we want to change it anymore. Tomorrow I feel like Lavender Rain, and then next I'll feel like just changing it again. I had no idea that that was attributed to BPD. I thought it was so funny that Brother Malachi actually brought it up one day. But I've had a couple people ask it. I just didn't think it was a big deal. I was like, why are y'all making a big deal out of me changing my... Like, I got bored with it. But it just proves that people who are normal, they can see that that's not a normal thing to do. Like, it's an inconsistent... It's like unstable. Why are you changing your YouTube name? Like, so many freaking times. Like, so yeah. I thought that was funny. So I found that out and I was like, oh my God. I felt so exposed reading that. I was like, I need help. Oh my God, I changed my YouTube name, put me in a psych ward. But anyway, so the next one, impulsivity in at least two areas that are potentially self-damaging. For example, spending, sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, binge eating, etc. The two that I would say is impulsive for me, that I just, it's almost like a sense of a no lack of self-control, is the spending and the binge eating. Binge eating comes first. And I've shared this with y'all so many times. That's definitely due to trauma. When I read something like that, since it's a personality disorder, it always goes back to trauma. It sounds like that person is making up. It's always about filling a void. And this reminds me of when I used to buy excessive makeup. So that's why I say the BPD was always there. Remember when I had to throw all my makeup away years ago? I had so many different foundation lines. And it's like, why do you need that many different foundations? It's like, because they all look different. They don't all give the same look. MAC looks different. L'Oreal looks different. Mary Kay looks different. Estee Lauder looks different. Okay? I need all of them. Iman looks different. I always did that. If I had red lipstick, I would have 6 different shades of red because they all each had a different personality, and I needed each shade to identify with. I'm dead serious. I had so much makeup. When the Lord told me to throw my makeup away, I was so hurt. I felt like I was throwing away my friends. I was like, Lord, these are people. You can't make me throw these people away. And same thing with the perfume fragrances. If y'all remember 3 years ago, I had tons of perfume fragrances. I loved it so much. I literally identified with each scent. I saw it as a personality. I loved it. I still love scents today. Like I would still, even natural scents, I still feel that way. And I think there's a godly, factor to that, that the Father, everything he's made has its own little personality, so to speak. Everything's different and beautiful, and that's the way I always saw it. But I took it a step further. When I bought something, I bought it excessively. Like, for example, even tonight, like I drove to Walmart and I needed to get like some spray because I get like a really itchy or dry scalp. I saw one that was sold for 8, medicated, for you to spray on your scalp. And there's another one that I ended up getting. I was going to get both of them. This is what I do. So this was when they say like just excessive, impulsive, just spending. It's like you don't need that much, Brandy. Just pick one. And then when it comes down to that, I can't pick one. I'm very indecisive. I'm like, okay, this one is medicated. This one, I literally go into like a whole counsel in my mind in the aisle in Walmart for 20 minutes. And I would just stand there looking stupid. And somebody will probably look at me like, what the heck is going on? I stood there and I was like going back and forth like, they're not that different, honey. Pick one. And then I was like, okay, this one's 444. This one's 412. Okay, but this one has medicated. But this one says that it has like a cooling sensation. I need to get both of them. The Lord was like, Brandy, do not get both of those bottles. And I did good tonight. I got one. But I do that with everything. That's not good. I don't know why I'm like, well, I know why I'm like that now, but it's retarded. It's so retarded. So like, yes, the excessive, just impulsive spending. There's been times where, and this is not something I'm proud of, but even when I had a job and stuff like that, it really is, I don't like talking about this. That's a little bit personal. I'll share this much because it's in relation to what we're talking about. I think a few months ago, I had a group of sisters and I told them I actually wanted to get a doctor's visit. I wanted to go get diagnosed with BPD so I could get actual medication at the time. And I had a sister that was faithfully giving, I think, like $100 to me like every week. Unfortunately, I told her this, but unfortunately, it's really weird. Every time I would get to like the $300 mark, which is, I didn't have insurance, so I would have to pay the full like actual visitation fee if I were to go see a professional to get the medication. Something would just come over me and I would just like spend it on food, which they put binge eating, and that sounds really bad. It's not something that you want to confess to the body of Christ or people who are actually sowing into you financially. I don't always do that, but I did do that a few months ago. It genuinely felt like something that was impulsive that I had no control over. Like I needed the money to get help, but the main thing I need help from is stopping me from putting it where I originally intended to put it. And it's kind of like, I don't want to say the mental illness. I don't know if this is classified as a mental illness, but it's like the disorder is working against you. That's why I say if you're dealing with somebody that's dealing with something like that, you kind of need an accountability partner because it didn't make sense. And that's why I say if you have like an impulsive spending issue or sex or substance abuse or binge eating, like they say, that has to be something that's deep rooted. I mean, if I had to think about it, when I buy stuff, I feel like it's attributed to feeling a void on a very subconscious level. There's like a chronic emptiness. And when I get stuff that I like or I get stuff that I need, or even if it's food, I do feel filled. Like I feel fulfilled. I know it's really sick and disgusting, but I feel like okay, I kind of medicated myself for the day, or I medicated myself for the night. Like I feel happy, I feel full. And then right after, your better judgment kicks in and you realize that you wasted all this money on stuff that you probably didn't really need. Or sometimes, like, I don't even do it with stupid stuff. I'll do it with groceries. I'll spend money on tons of groceries, like, raw fruits and vegetables, and then, like, I'll switch up again. Like, I don't want to eat that. I've been doing that for years. So, and I already told y'all the binge eating, that impulsivity symptom, that's something that really needs to be arrested by the Holy Spirit, because that's why they say it's self-damaging, because it's something that you don't have any control over. It just kind of takes over you and you just kind of do it. It's definitely something deep rooted and subconscious. That's so yeah, that's true. But that's the ones I put for myself is the binge eating and the spending, excessive spending. That's definitely filling a void. He put reckless driving, substance abuse. I highlighted substance abuse too. I don't do that now, but I was like, I still feel like there's a part of me that still sometimes wishes I had those pills, or I wish, because it's just what I'm used to. I'm used to using that to cope. That used to be my escape. So that's not something I ever really just kind of divorced from internally. I don't do it. That's why I say it's weird. Like I'm obedient. That's why I say I have like a behavioral modified BPD. It doesn't really just have its way like that. And I think that's due to the Holy Spirit, to be honest, but it's there. So yeah, the next one is recurrent suicidal behavior, gestures or threats or self-mutilating behavior. I checked that because when I was watching videos about that symptom specifically and I had people actually break it down, I don't have suicidal gestures, threats, or I don't self-mutilate or anything. But I noticed that a lot of the girls with BPD, they would say that anytime something bad went wrong in their life or something bad happened, their mind, it goes back to the black and white thing. The only way to really solve this situation, the only way to really fix this is just kill myself. I said, yeah, I think like that all the time. It's almost like it just goes back to that inner system that's there. You're restricted. It's like you do have more options. It's weird because like we can know intellectually there are other options to fix what this issue is, but the way our system is built up is it's limited, it's restrictive. I can't help myself. The only way to just get rid of all this confusion, which most of the confusion we made up in our own minds, not even real. I'm gonna just end it like this. This is the only way to fix all this stuff. So yeah, I think that often. So that's something I actually related to them about when they said that. So I was like, okay, it doesn't have to be actual suicidal carrying out, like self-mutilating stuff. It could just be like an internal system of thinking, constant suicidal thoughts, or just thinking that the solution to something trivial would just be to just, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely there. I said, that's a fragment. That's definitely a fragment that feels like that. The next one is affective instability due to a marked reactivity of mood. For example, intense episodic dysphoria, irritability, or anxiety, usually lasting a few hours and only rarely more than a few days. So, unstable moods. Yes. Uh oh. I just got a notification. Oh. Um, I have to go to the restroom. So yeah, they say I forgot what dysphoria was. I checked it though. I actually qualify for all 9 symptoms. I thought I was just gonna have like 5 or 6. I had all of them. I was like, crap. Well, darn. I mean, whatever. But we highlighted the irritability. So basically, it just kind of sounds like there's constant mood swings throughout the day that last for a few hours of anxiety, irritability, just agitation, being angry, easily angered. That's a true mood disorder, because when I feel that, it's not really like a emotion with a disorder. I feel like emotions of irritation or agitation or anger is normal. You know, the word says to be angry but sin not. This is different. When it's a disorder, it feels like the ability, it like it's in my soul, and it just kind of rises up in my chest, and it's like a constant dis-ease. It's a constant discontentment. It's a constant sense of like anxiety just in my chest, and it gets so overwhelming to the point where you just want to explode and just blow up, but you can't. Like, there's no real release. The only release is to binge eat. The only release is to go get a black and mild, or just go drink something, or just go buy something, it'll make you feel better. And sadly it works. Something, or just go buy something, it'll make you feel better. And sadly it works. So that's true. A mood disorder is not an emotion. It's definitely something really internal, and that's what it feels like. So I didn't even know what anxiety disorder was. I had to look up anxiety a few months ago. I was like, so that's what the heck that is when I feel that. It's like a mixture of just like stress, just kind of like a panic. It's like a mixture of panic attack, just kind of stress, just really being overwhelmed, and just I'm gonna have to look it up again. Just kind of depression. It's a lot of just a mix of just different stuff. But as y'all can see, that's fragments. That's multiple different fragments. That's somebody who's split, and they're pretty much just a mess, because all those different parts are feeling so many different kinds of emotions and so many different things. They need healing and they need love. That's what that is. But I am very irritable. I get agitated very easily. That's something that y'all have already kind of witnessed on here. I'll probably even done it to some of y'all. That's true. So the next one is chronic feelings of emptiness. For example, Betty often felt alone, even when she was hooking up or was with a significant other. She'd say, I'm usually alone in a crowded room. So, yes, chronic feelings of emptiness. I checked it because I've felt that. I don't feel it all the time, but there's long periods where it would just kind of come up just randomly, and I would stay like that for days. I just felt nothing. Or that all the people and all the things in my life that should make me content, it just wasn't fulfilling that void, or whatever that, whatever that was. So I checked that off. The next one, second to last, is inappropriate, intense anger, or difficulty controlling anger. For example, frequent displays of temper, constant anger, recurrent physical fights. Now, this is where the spectrum of borderline personality disorder comes into play, because people who have extreme BPD, they fight. So a good picture of somebody like that is they're very sporadic. They get angry immediately, and they actually act on that anger externally. They go from 0 to 100 real quick. It's almost like they just switch, and they will fight you. And then after that, they'll calm down and be like, I'm so sorry that I broke your nose. I don't know what came over me. Like that's extreme BPD. I actually listed myself for severe, which I'm going to get into later. I definitely have that. Um, Intense anger or difficulty controlling anger. My anger is controlled in the sense that I feel all those things intensely, but it's internal. From persecution I've gotten against my ministry from certain people, even in my personal life too, not just really through social media or anything or any interactions with other believers, but just my family and stuff. Looking at me, you probably wouldn't notice that I deal with anger like that, but that's because I really believe, once again, that because I'm a Christian, the Holy Spirit really does arrest a lot of these symptoms. I have every symptom that we're talking about, but it never really manifests itself in an aggressive physical way because I'm disciplined by Him, but it's still there. What that feels like for me intense anger, they got that word right, is very intense. It just goes back to the black and white thing. If I feel like somebody has wronged me or they've offended me or they just did any kind of wrong, because it's like a mixture of the disorder, but also like the justice and the righteous anger that comes from being in the faith as well. I get so angry. I feel like the only way to deal with this person is for them to be exterminated. I'm being completely honest with you. Uh, yeah, that's the best thing I can say. Intense anger, difficulty controlling the anger. I'll vent about it to other sisters. They get the brunt of it. They know behind the scenes. They've seen it and what it looks like. Not in its full manifest form as much as I can release, because I'm a Christian and I can't really say what I want to say, how I want to say it. I can't do what I want to do, how I want to do it. So even when I do release some of that anger, uh, which is still very much tied to the mood disorder, just like the irritability, it's still not a real release. What I really want to do is I want to scream in a very outrageous rage. I want to cuss and I want to hurl all kinds of insults and guttural obscenities and everything else from the gates of hell. See, that's why I say like it's definitely I think it's a mixture of a spirit with also a wounded altar. Because I've actually done this a few times, and I actually shared this with y'all in a previous video. My cousin Dominique was actually a witness to it. I was on the phone with him, and I was experiencing narcissistic abuse from my sister at the time. I think it was like last year. I went outside. I had so much anxiety and so much rage build up in my chest, and this was late at night. I went outside. The whole neighborhood could hear me. I was screaming and railing. It felt like something else was just screaming through me. I don't even remember what I was saying. It was just, I just hated her so much. I wanted her to be dealt with by God. It was kind of like I was even cursing her. I wasn't intentionally cursing her, but the stuff I was saying, I was just screaming so much stuff. And I think the whole neighborhood heard me down the street. My sister even came back to me after it happened and told me that she was disturbed by what I was saying. And I think that it did something spiritually, because whatever I was screaming, I think it was about her dog. I think my sister's dog chewed up my earphones. And my sister is a narcissist, so she felt like she wasn't responsible to repay me back for my earphones that her dog ate up. And I don't have a job, I don't have money like that. That was some expensive quality earphones. That's what that was about. And that's what I was screaming to the phone, screaming to Dominique about on the phone. I was angry about it. And I think I was cursing the dog. I was just screaming some crazy, like psychotic stuff. And I said something about her dog. I remember the next morning after I calmed down, I felt like a spirit had just used me to curse, because my mom told me, she said Danielle's dog got kidnapped. Somebody came and took their dog. It was something weird. And I was like, that's an interesting chain of events. You were just previously screaming. It just made me feel like when you're word cursing somebody or something, I think those spirits come to meet those words to carry out what you said. And when I heard that, because my sister at the time, she was right next door to us, that somebody took their dog, I said, it sounds like the spirits were just off on the address by one house. Like the stuff I was screaming was just like, I hate the dog. I want the dog to die. I hate her. I hate this dog. I hate this house. I hate these people. I was just like saying some crazy stuff. So their dog got taken with my little sister's dog. It was my other sister. But it's there. I just yeah, I feel like somebody who's really impulsive and who doesn't have restrained BPD, I think it probably manifests a lot often. But with me, because I feel like I'm a Christian, I feel like the Holy Spirit does arrest a lot of it. But I also know that I have to carry myself a certain way. So that just leaves it to build up anxiety in my chest on the inside. But it's definitely there. If that were to finally be released, it would look really psychotic and demonic, being completely honest. But he's witnessed it. I wish he was on this live chat. But yeah. And the last one is transient stress related paranoid ideation or severe dissociative symptoms. Paranoid ideation is being afraid that others are plotting against you. And dissociation is mentally separating from physical or emotional experiences or both. The one that I really relate to the most would be the paranoid ideation, being afraid that others are plotting against you. Like I said, it just all goes back to the mental system that we've set up, or not that we've intentionally set up, because he does say that borderline personality disorder can develop over time due to different things in your life that may have contributed to that, So it formed over time. So that is something that I deal with. And I used to think that it was paranoid schizophrenia, which it possibly still could be, but I don't want to diagnose myself with schizophrenia because that's already not a pretty term, but that's also something else that people don't really understand medically. So the actual real definition of what it is actually common. But I do think like that. I always think that somebody is plotting against me. I'm not going to get into detail about that because it's too personal, but there is no peace. It's always suspicion. It's always fearing the next attack, the next persecution attack, it's never a feeling of just being safe and just having true peace in the Lord. Peace of mind anyway. So yeah, I always feel like somebody's just out to get me. And that could be true. Like a lot of those attacks could be real. You could in fact have the demonic realm plotting something against you because of your anointing, but there's another side to that where even if that were the case, even if you were the most targeted Christian in the world, there still should be the mind of Christ giving you peace that surpasses all understanding to the point where you shouldn't be dealing with something like that. That's your mental system that you always feel like somebody is against you. Somebody is secretly your enemy. It's never a positive. Even the true friends that you have, you're questioning them. So that I do deal with that. I always feel like somebody is plotting against me. I don't trust anybody. When I share intimate details with certain sisters and I don't talk to them anymore, I always fear like they're gonna do some type of blackmail with the information. I always think like that. And when I think about that, that's the last one, by the way. When I think about that, I say, okay, so somebody who deals with paranoid ideation, um, I think that goes back to a sense of feeling unsafe again. That is evidence that something has stripped off that protective layer, that protective covering that you may have supposed to had as a child. Maybe that was taken away from you, whether that was through sexual abuse or some other way. There's a reason why, because he says from a psychological point of view, BPD can be genetic. I think he talks about that in the next chapter. It can be genetic, or it can be due to social influences, or it can go back to the way your brain literally formed because of what you experienced. So this is like a literal physical thing. People's brains with certain disorders are wired completely differently, and they're not normal people. That's true, they're not normal. So this isn't even just a spiritual thing. This is actually like, their brain needs to be rewired and reformatted. Like literally on a scan, it would show up completely different. So if somebody is a paranoid schizophrenic or paranoid ideation, that's somebody who never feels safe. There's a reason why they always feel suspicious. They're suspicious of other people because somebody betrayed that trust. And that's why things like that always go back to some form of abuse that took place. Because you're not going to constantly be paranoid about everybody around you. Something has made some part of you, if it is an alter or a fragment, something has made you feel vulnerable enough to the point where you don't feel protected at all. And this is going to reflect in your ministry, your life period, your interpersonal relationships. You always feel like somebody is plotting against you. Somebody is not, they don't have your best interest at heart. I'll just say that because they say plotting against you, but I'm like, that just sounds like you don't trust anybody. That's what that is. There's no real trust. So what happened to make you feel like you couldn't trust anybody? And it's turned into the way your brain developed, it's turned into you feeling like somebody's always against you. Somebody is plotting against you. someone does not have my best interest at heart because this happened. Something happened to communicate that to you. Your brain processed that because something happened to you a long time ago that made you feel that way. And that's all we're dealing with today. So with some of these symptoms, as y'all can see, a lot of it is going to take a lot of renewing of the mind. It's going to take a lot of love, a lot of grace, a lot of healing. You literally have to reprogram somebody's mind with BPD. That's their reality. There's no peace in having a mind like that. Even if everybody was plotting against you, who the heck wants to think about it? It's like, I mean, like the Lord would have no mental peace if, like, yeah, he knew he had tons of enemies. He knew what his fate was, but who wants to sit up there when I'm at the Last Supper trying to chill with my homeboys? It's my last meal before I go out, like the G that I am, Big G, right hand of the other Big G. Who wants to have on their mind that all these Pharisees and these Roman soldiers are about to rip me to shreds and they completely hate me? They may hate you. You may, in fact, have tons of enemies. All that stuff could be true. You may not be delusional at all, but the fact that that fills up your mind to the point where you can't even think, you can't even trust the genuine people that you have. Everybody's not a Judas. I think like that. I don't trust anybody. If I do trust some friends, it's not even a full, complete trust because of my past experiences, because of past traumatic abuse, of course, and one of them would be sexual abuse, but because I feel like you have the potential to do what everybody else did. So it's not even like a full vulnerability in giving myself over to you and oneness the way it should be, the way the Lord really wants us to be one with each other and to love each other, because I don't trust anybody. It has nothing to do with you. And if you ever become my husband and you're watching this, it's not personal or a future friend. When it comes to BPD, it has nothing to do. It more than likely, all of this stuff has nothing to do with the people on the outside. It's all about this person's internal system, how they process stuff, and how it reflects on the relationships. I don't trust people because somebody betrayed my trust. So I'm a paranoid person. I'm expecting you to continue the pattern of abuse that I've been experiencing in my life. That's why their relationships fail miserably. And that's why I was saying earlier, if you are dating somebody or you want to marry a woman or a man with BPD or you have a friend with BPD, you have some shoes to fill. You can consider this an assignment. And if you really love them, it won't be an assignment to you. It's just a little bit more responsibility that you'll have with them over somebody else. You'll have to prove a little bit more. I'm not like the last guy, okay? I don't know what you experience with all these other Christians, sis, but I'm not like this. That's disgusting. I would never do something like that to you. You have to tell that person that. Because the way their mind has developed over time, and this is dating back from early childhood trauma to even recent trauma, everything that happens to us takes part in the formulation of our brain patterns until it's fully developed. However, they scientifically determine whenever it's fully developed. My point is, it affects it, okay? So, to sum all this up, people with personality disorders, they just need a little extra TLC, They gonna need a little bit, lot more. You're gonna need a special anointing. They are assignments, okay? They're not normal. They're not people that are easy to deal with. They're not your typical average person. They're fragmented. They're more sensitive. They're more edgy. You are walking on eggshells. You do have to prove yourself, where in other cases with somebody else, you probably wouldn't have to prove yourself that much because somebody else may not have all those fears and feeling like you're going to do to them what the last guy did. But this person with BPD does feel that way. They feel like they're surrounded by enemies. I can't trust anybody. When you look at all these symptoms, that just sounds like, once again, somebody really broken, somebody who's been taken advantage of, somebody who's very fragile, somebody who needs a lot of love, a lot of nurturing, a lot of care. They're in a corner somewhere, balled up with their head in their arms. I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I'm scared of you. The smallest thing that you do to show them that you're untrustworthy or how they process you being untrustworthy, they push you away. Not because you're disposable, not because something is wrong with you, but because they're scared. They've already experienced something that made them feel what they're feeling now, and they don't want to experience that again. They have not yet had anybody to prove to them what real love looks like. That's why they push you away. I have to go to the restroom, so I'm gonna have to end this video. But that we just went over all 9 symptoms of borderline personality disorder. I tried my best to. I qualify for each one, sadly, but I tried my best to share with y'all how I identify with all of them, and maybe kind of give y'all some insight into our world and how we think and how we feel and why we do. Behind that person is just a little hurt child, and it's just they set up all these defense mechanisms, honey. You got to cut through like a sword with Prince Philip and Sleeping Beauty, and cut through the dragon and Maleficent to get through to this person, and you got to dodge and go through all the matrix bullets and the red lasers and the jewelry store. It's a lot of work, but you know, through Christ, you can do all things. That strengthens you. And if they have the Holy Spirit and they know what they're dealing with and they understand themselves a lot better, like me, for example, they can cooperate with you. So it's not going to be as difficult as somebody who, I don't know, doesn't even know they have BPD and they're just freaking spazzing out. They have all these issues and they don't want to get treatment. Good luck in life. What you're going to get is somebody who's going to date you, who's going to be submitted to an Ahab spirit, and they're going to submit to that abuse that you have to dish out to them because you don't want to get help. You ain't going to make me mentally ill because you don't want to fix your mental illness, okay? There is a difference. People who are willing to identify with disorders and they're seeking treatment, they understand themselves better, they can be fixed. Okay? They just need a little love. They just need some healing. They can be pulled out of that bondage. I'm speaking about myself. It's not impossible for you to have a relationship with them. You just need to understand people with BPD better and what their world is, and you'll just see it's just a whole bunch of brokenness. It's very unfortunate that whatever they experienced has caused all of that. But the Lord says He's interested in tearing down mental strongholds. So they can come down, and a lot of it is through the weapon of love, the weapon of patience, the weapon of grace, the weapon of long suffering, the weapon of endurance with people like that. Because it sounds like they need proof that you're different. It's not enough for you to just say it. They need proof. And I personally feel this. I felt this too, dealing with BPD. Even if we cut you off and we said what we said, deep down inside, we want you to fight and show us and prove us wrong. A lot of people feel so abused by BPD people that they don't even try to fix it. And for us, that confirms what we originally convinced ourselves about you in the first place, that you don't care about us. So once again, what does the Lord say love and care is? Perseverance. You don't leave. She broke up with you 10 times. She gonna pick out the door. You still there? Yes, I'm still here. You know, I done researched this BPD stuff works, you know, and y'all reconcile and you know, those fragments need to be proved that somebody actually does care. Somebody is safe. There is safety somewhere. They can find security in you. You are really a genuine person. And whenever they do these little defense mechanisms and kicking you out, throwing you away 10 times, abusing you over again as a friend, they're really hurt. Your friend is hurt. That's not normal. That somebody had to put up that many defense systems to keep people out. I mean, that's basically what that is. They're hurt. So if you want to fight your way in, you really love that person, and you can see that they're actually a genuine, beautiful person, they're just kind of in bondage, you're going to fight through and you're going to be really consistent. You're going to be patient with them. You're going to keep loving them, and you're going to participate in them renewing their mind and proving that, you know, everybody's not bad. You know, love does exist. Security does exist. Real friends do exist. And people who actually genuinely love you, that are willing to stick around and not leave you every time you display these things, Brandy, they do exist. So how do you expect the person to get out of bondage if you just keep doing what all the other people did? You just keep leaving. That's not Christ. Okay? Now, if you can't handle it, you just sincerely ain't got the strength for something like that, it is abusive. It is a lot to deal with, you know. But that's why I say we're special cases. The Father would have to anoint somebody with the love, the proper care, and the proper measure of grace to give to the person if they are appointed to be their wife or their husband or their friend in any kind of format. And the Lord can love them through you, you know. It's possible. So there's a lot more I want to share. And then they give you kind of like a BPD spectrum listing all the same symptoms, and you had to choose between mild, moderate, severe, or extreme. For frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment, I put extreme. Unstable and intense interpersonal relationships characterized by alternating between extremes of idealization and devaluation, I put extreme. Identity disturbance, I put severe instead of an extreme, which is a step lower. Impulsivity with the binge eating, I put severe. Recurrent suicidal behavior, I put mild because I don't really deal with that. Mood disorder, the anxiety, irritability, I put extreme. Chronic feelings of emptiness, severe. Intense anger or difficulty controlling anger, I put severe. Paranoid ideation, I put extreme. Oh, I forgot to say the dissociative part, I don't really deal with that. I'm going to have to look into dissociation a little bit more because the way he explained it, he said dissociation is mentally separating from physical or emotional experiences or both. No, I'm always very much intimately involved with whatever is happening to me, so much to the point where it affects me really negatively. So I don't really dissociate in that way. So yeah. And he said, when you look at your responses, where would you put yourself on the BPD spectrum? So I said severe. And then on the next page, he gives you, this is the like the workbook part. He says, why did you rate yourself mild, moderate, severe, or extreme as you did? And I put, because I do feel those things very intensely and often, but it doesn't really manifest in outrageous, explosive, or aggressive episodes. I guess it would have the potential to if I didn't have the Holy Spirit restricting me from doing certain things. Most of the things I rated severe are more so internal conflicts that don't fully blossom externally, which means I ain't gonna wild out on you, but on the inside, I've just murdered you. But I ain't gonna do that. My OG voice. I could kill you right now with my bare hands, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm serious. Like, so that's why I say I wouldn't say I'm extreme. When I think of somebody with extreme BPD, they wilding out, they fighting, they switching, they don't care. Like, when that altar comes to the surface and they get triggered, I'll say triggered. When somebody with extreme BPD gets triggered, they gonna fight you in the bar, they gonna fight you in the club, they gonna pop you in your face. They're not thinking about none of that. They're uncontrollable. I think of extreme BPD as it's uncontainable. They can't be tamed. Okay. I put severe because I don't feel most of those symptoms moderately. They are really intense for me, but they don't manifest externally. I consider myself a ticking time bomb. All that stuff is piling up. I feel the anxiety. What that's creating for me, because I don't have an outlet to release the extremity, is building up in here. And that gives me a sense of lack of peace for myself. And if it got to a point, I think it has the potential for me to blow up on you, but it'd have to be a very significant, unique case. That's not my lifestyle. I don't be wilding out like that. So I could never be an extreme. I put severe, but more so internally. So he says, when you look back at your responses to the questions above and your ratings, what have you learned about your BPD? I said, I guess I consider myself a disciplined case of severe borderline personality disorder because I can control my behavior. But everything else, I pretty much, yeah, it's there. I feel all that stuff, but I don't act on that stuff. If I did, I'd probably feel a lot better, but I'd also be looked at as a lunatic. So I'm not gonna do that. Then chapter 2 is where does BPD come from? He goes into the roots of it, genetics, psychological and social influences, basically like trauma in the household, neglect as a child, witnessing chaos and abusive behavior in the home. I didn't deal with any of that. And then he had me fill out a list of my close relatives who also display symptoms of BPD. So I put down my mom, my dad, my little sister, and my older sister. And they say that to qualify for the actual diagnosis, you have to meet at least 5 of the criteria out of the 9 that we talked about. None of my relatives that I know of meet. They didn't even meet like at least five. None of them. My mom. I said the only thing I really notice about my mom when it comes to the interpersonal relationships and cutting people off, she does that a lot. My mom can consider somebody her favorite cousin. She can be really close to them, be really cool with them for a season. Let them piss her off. The person is trash. And she would talk to me about this, like, oh yeah, she. So yeah, my mom, she has that character trait of BPD. So yeah, my mom, she has that character trait of BPD. She does the switching. She will have you on a pedestal as her favorite friend, her favorite cousin one day, let you do something wrong. You're her enemy. Like, period. She will turn on you like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what turns on people, but that's how she'll turn on you. I've her cousins, friends she's had, my own aunt, her sister, and me. So, and I think I had another list for her that I had to write down because there wasn't enough space for my mom. Identity disturbance. I've never really witnessed her deal with self-image apart from a dream the Lord gave me about her, where I saw that she had put on this different appeal to my dad in the dream, and I could feel in the dream feel like a husband figure to her, or although he is her covenant husband. I felt that she was dealing with self-rejection, that she saw my dad as somebody that she wanted acceptance and validation from. So my dad felt like a narcissist because he's a narcissist. And my mom actually had her dad leave her when she was younger too. The only dream the Lord gave me where I literally saw my mom just complete, and I could feel it from her. She had no real sense of identity. She just put on this apparel to look real Jezebelian to be appealing to my dad so he could accept her and love her. And my dad is not somebody that you want to. So it's clear how that relationship got started and why that even continued. She was seeking her dad through my dad. But other than that, my dad, my dad is just impulsive with spending because he gambles a lot. My dad does construction. He has always made a lot of money, and he has always been known to waste his money gambling. It is the most stupidest thing. If anybody, actually, now that I have this workbook, it makes sense that my dad, I don't think he has BPD. My dad is a narcissist. Both of my parents are narcissists, so no. They have narcissistic personality disorder. They're not BPD. But as far as impulsivity, my dad has that with spending. This man will make tons of money, get paid $33 an hour, working 12 hours a day, and he will go to the casino and waste all his, my mom too. It doesn't make any sense. So I guess that goes back to the, it could be something deeper rooted. I didn't think about that. Suicidal, my dad. I just remember one occasion where I was with my dad one day. That was the first time he ever really opened up to me because he's usually like a shut off person. You cannot read him. And he just said to me out of nowhere, he was like, sometimes I just want to take a bullet and just, blow my brains out. And I was just like, the way he said it, it was like he was just tired. Like, I was like, wow, like he actually is, opening up about some confusion that's in there. So he is tormented. He just said it randomly to me one day. Like, for somebody to just say something random like that, like they just want to take a gun and blow their brains out. Yeah, he's tormented. That's all those defiling spirits and everything else that he's entertaining in his life. So he is feeling the brunt of that. Sometimes it looks like people who are living a lifestyle like that, they're not suffering. They're suffering. You can't see it on my dad, but I'll never forget that day. He just randomly said that to me. And I would have never thought that he felt that way. That he wanted to take a gun and just blow his brains out. But I put that for him for the suicide part. He's very impulsive. My dad deals with anger very, very badly. It does not take him long to get angry. Like I said, he's very abusive. My dad is violent. He is physically violent. He's emotionally abusive, verbally abusive. He's abused me sexually, emotionally, and verbally. He has hit me. And he also used to abuse my mom. My dad gets angry very quick. He's not somebody he's not somebody you feel safe with at all. He definitely has some serious issues. I was going through this workbook like, dang, I low-key want to contact my family and like kind of get him this book. Like, why haven't y'all ever considered going to therapy, honey? You got some issues. My sister, My little sister, I didn't see any real traits that she had with BPD, except she deals with anger too. She likes to take your stuff and destroy it. She's very, that's how she manifests her anger. She likes to fight. Sierra is very aggressive. She likes to take your stuff and destroy it. She'll take your food. You bought food, she'll throw it away. She'll pour it all out in the trash. Like, that's the kind of stuff that she does. Piss you off really bad. Apart from anger and rage, I didn't really see much with her. My older sister, I've had dreams of her being suicidal, the Lord showed me, but I've never heard that come from her directly. She also deals with anger and rage and irritability. She is known for being bitter and irritated. If you ever met her, it's all over her face. She's just like a bitter chick. It's really sad, but it's true. Um, Most of the symptoms that they named, it's not really something you could really know if somebody was feeling unless they told you. So that's why I was like, I don't know if they're BPD. These symptoms are personal stuff that you feel. Like, I mean, I can't see that with them. Like, I don't know if they feel that way. They could. But this was just to kind of gauge how much of the disorder was genetic. And then they made me do this stupid chart of how much percentage I felt was psychological and social and how much was genetics. That would equal 100. I put 76% for genetics and 24 for psychological because all the stuff they listed for early experiences, I never experienced any of that. I don't agree with what I put. I'm like, I don't think any of it is genetic because I don't think any of my relatives have BPD. It's just me. If they do, I don't know. And then I stopped at chapter 3, which I have to go over next. Okay, that's my vlog. It's up. I have to go. My phone is dying. I hope y'all enjoyed it and got to know me a little bit better, understood BPD a little bit better, and know how to deal with me as a sister. And I guess as we continue to go through this book, or I do, I'll share some more stuff with y'all. It's a really decent workbook. It's pretty thick too. I like the width of it. It's a pretty decent workbook. So it's definitely beneficial. It's helping me understand myself better a little bit, and it only gets better from here. I'm gonna talk to you guys later. Y'all have a blessed day.